to my channel. My name's Brianna. If you're new, thanks for clicking on today's video. Today's video, I am going to be talking about how to become a reader. I myself have not always been a reader. I actually have found it pretty hard to become a reader. I'm 32 years old and I've only just gotten into reading now in the past like 2 years. So it's definitely been a journey for me. And along the way, I've just kind of accumulated certain tips and things that work for me to help me stay consistent. I started my reading journey when I was getting married. I found like the wedding planning process to be incredibly stressful, and I needed something to kind of take me out of my head, the stress, just everything that you deal with when you're planning a wedding. If you know, you know. And I found reading during that time, and it's been the greatest thing that I've found because it's such a good hobby. It makes me feel more accomplished and I just like it. But just starting off, why would you even want to become a reader? Like, why is this even beneficial to you? Well, for one, it's become incredibly popular. I'm sure you've seen with like booktok and social media, people constantly talking about books that they've been reading. A lot of shows are being made from books, and it's like the saying, the book is always better. So reading the book, getting the story first before the show comes out is a little bit of an advantage. Reading helps you experience new perspectives. I think it's pretty obvious that when we live our life, we only live it through our perspective, our experience. But reading really takes you out of that and brings you into a completely different environment, scenario. It gets you into the narrator's head of where they are in their life and what they're experiencing. It helps broaden your perspective on life and just different experiences that people have, and just trying to understand where people are coming from. Reading is also a fantastic way to decompress and lower your stress. Like I said, I actually started reading with that key focus in mind. I was going through a very stressful time in my life and I needed something to just completely take me out of it. Watching TV sometimes can do that, but I find that TV, especially with commercials, this can add to that anxiety a little bit or make me like wander and like compare myself to what I'm watching. It just doesn't take me out of my reality quite like reading does. I kind of already mentioned this before, but a feeling of accomplishment after you finish a book is so nice. I believe my reading goal this year is 25 books, which doesn't seem like a lot, but going from reading nothing to reading 25 books in a year is a big jump for me. Last year, my goal was like 10 books or something, just very easy. For me not being a reader, it was a real challenge to hit that. And once I hit that, I felt so proud of myself. I had such a great feeling of accomplishment. And outside of that, obviously, I think the biggest like perk of reading is just expanding your vocabulary. It's just really crazy how when you read a book and you're taking in all of the words, that your brain then will subconsciously digest it and interpret it and then use it later in life. Like, you don't even realize that it's happening. Let's get into the tips. Tip number one, read based off of your mood. Reading is such a personal thing, and if you're not a reader, you're not gonna have the inclination to just pick up a book and start reading. Setting the mood and being in the mood to read a certain kind of book definitely helps that. Reading off of your mood is basically the same thing as watching a movie based off of your mood. If you're in the mood to cuddle up and watch a cute little rom-com with a wine glass and your friends, you wouldn't turn on like a horror movie. It's the same thing with reading. If you're in the mood to read a certain kind of book, you're gonna be more likely to wanna pick it up. My second tip, which is probably my biggest tip, give the book until about 30%. I have found time and time again, I hit that 30% mark on my Kindle, the book starts to pick up. I don't know what science it is, if that's like a method in writing books that you have to get to the 30% before things start to actually happen. If I pick up a book and I'm not into it, I will give myself until the 30% mark before I decide if I want to continue reading it or not. Brings me to my next tip. Do not finish books you don't like. That is what causes you to hate reading. Life is too short to finish books that we don't like just for the sake of finishing them. You want to start reading to enjoy reading, so have the entire process be enjoyable. Like I said before, if you're not a reader, reading is going to be a hard thing to want to pick up and continue to do. Your attention span just isn't there yet. If you're reading a book that you really hate and you've made it past that 30%, I think you need to put it down and just try something else. Now, my next tip is a little controversial. I know where I stand on it, but I know where a lot of people stand on it, and that is audiobooks. I think audiobooks count as reading. Hear me out. Not the exact same way that you're interpreting the book, but you're still receiving the story. And in a lot of ways, I think for a first-time reader, audiobooks is probably one of the best things you can do to get into reading. Because when you're a first-time reader, there's a lot of different skills you just don't have yet. One of those being your internal dialogue. Half the reason why I didn't really love reading, when I would read, I would literally just be reading the words off the page and like a bland narration in my head. Almost like as if you were reading like a school book. Nothing was really just standing out to me or exciting, or if something crazy would happen, it would still just kind of be, I'm just reading the words. I'm not really imagining it in my mind or creating this world that I'm reading about. And I learned that that was a skill that I kind of had to develop. Maybe some people are just born with that, but I was not. And that is half the reason why I would continuously put down books. I wouldn't have that internal narration and that world building skill to help me kind of see the book that I'm reading. And audiobooks help with that. Most audiobooks have a narrator that will either put on a voice or an accent, or allow for space and time of the cadence of the dialogue. All these things that help the book be more enjoyable to read, things that I just wasn't doing when I was reading. A super tip would be, if you have the ability to listen to the audiobook and read, I would listen to the audiobook for 2 chapters and then read for 2 chapters. Listen and then read, and go back and forth, kind of building that narration, the voices in your head, in the good way. Building the world and the voices and just the characters themselves and their attitude and how they say things. Building all of that in your mind, make your experience more enjoyable and digestible. My next tip is, again, a little controversial. At least for me, my experience, I cannot read easy read books. They're a little too easy. They're easy to pick up, but they're just as easy to put back down. They don't capture my attention long enough for me to really get into the story. So half the time when I would want to be a reader and I'd start reading like on a beach vacation, I would pick up a book, read like 3 pages, go in the ocean, tan, put it back down, and then see it in 3 years when I went on vacation again. These books just never captured my attention long enough for me to want to stay in it. So finding a book that has really strong characters, really strong storyline, maybe a little bit of that mystery if you're into it, just something to help you want to finish the book. My next tip is build reading into your routine. Kind of habit stack reading with something else that you already do similarly. So if you get home from work every day at 5, make dinner, and then sit down and turn on the TV, maybe once you finish dinner, sit down, leave your book next to the remote, and pick up the book and read for 5 minutes before you turn on the TV. Try and incorporate reading as much throughout the daytime, because if you're anything like me and you try to only read at night, you're gonna read 2 pages and then fall asleep and then forget what you read the next day, and it's just gonna be a cycle. Reading at nighttime is gonna have to be something that you do with either a book that you don't really care about, one of those easy reads, or just as a method to help you go to sleep, not necessarily to actually get into reading. Which brings me to my next tip: treat your book as a emotional support item. Bring it with you everywhere. Even if you don't think you're gonna read there, bring it. One thing that really helped me get into reading was reaching for my book every time I would want to reach for my phone and scroll. Kind of making that conscious effort to pick up a book instead of picking up my phone and scrolling. Having my book with me everywhere I went, anytime I went outside the house or even at work on lunch breaks. Having it with me made me more aware to pick it up. You never know when the opportunity for you to read is going to be. And anytime your brain even flickers the thought of wanting to pick back up the book, you're gonna want it right there so that you can. Again, this is all about building new habits, and it's not gonna be easy right away. Just like any habit, it takes almost 30 days consistently to develop a habit. So you're just gonna wanna set yourself up for success and have it near you to pick up whenever you have the urge or the thought to start reading. My next tip: find a reading style that works for you, not one that you think you should do. What I mean by that is, when I started reading, I thought I needed to sit down like on my couch with a hardback book, tea by me, like a fireplace going in the background. I create this whole ambiance with like this nice hardcover book. And then I started reading hardcover books and realized I hate them. I cannot read hardcover books. I don't know why. I just don't like picking them up. It's more distracting than anything. So knowing that now, I only pick up paperback books or I read from my Kindle. My Kindle, I have it here, is probably the thing that got me into reading the most, which is very, very surprising for me because I was always one of those people that said I could never read a digital reader. I'm only a hardback or paperback book person, but I didn't really know what I was talking about when I was saying that because I wasn't really a reader. I still love reading paperback books, but I'm more likely to pick up my Kindle and read than I am a paperback book. Again, it's all about building those habits. Once I learned that I was more likely to pick up a Kindle and read just a couple pages on this than my paperback, I started bringing this everywhere with me. I think the thing that works the most with the Kindle with me is the fact that it's so compact. I can bring it with me anywhere. It doesn't add more weight to my bag. I have it next to my nightstand so I can read at night as well. I don't need a nightlight with this. And it's a lot more comfortable for me to read. I like to read like laying down. So just like logistically, having the Kindle where I could just lay down on my side or just prop it up on my legs and just flip through the pages made reading so much more enjoyable for me. And I read so much longer on this now than I ever did a paperback. Not to like sell you guys on a Kindle if it's not your reading style. The last tip is reading books that were lower than my current reading level. I say this because it's all about confidence building. I feel like this is a really helpful hack if you can get past the idea of what you're doing. And I say that because I think there's a lot of subconscious judgment that tells you that if you're reading, you have to be reading books that challenge you, that increases your vocabulary, that make you smarter, and that's not true. Reading is supposed to be fun. All of those other things that I talked about at the beginning of this video as reasons to want to start reading happen naturally in the reading process. I started reading and I wanted to become a reader and I wanted to become committed to it and I wanted to have fun with it. I decided to read at a lower reading level and read books that were childish. The book series that got me into reading was in fact Harry Potter. And I know this is the most cliche series of all to get into reading, but it's cliche for a reason. So I read the whole Harry Potter series through my whole wedding era. Reading those books was so nostalgic, very digestible, had no problem creating the world or the narrations. I'd already seen the movies, so I kind of had those characters in my mind when I was reading, and it really helped me build my confidence with reading. I flew through them, obviously, because they're technically children's books.